George Strait sat in the dim light of his study, surrounded by golden awards that told the story of a successful career, yet his heart felt heavy. The walls were adorned with photographs capturing moments frozen in time. The young man with a cowboy hat, a microphone in hand, the euphoric crowd singing along to his every word. But behind every smile in those frames lay a solitude he couldn't shake. There they hung, the trophy and the memories, a testament to a life filled with fame, yet success often felt like an empty promise. He glanced around, the air thick with the scent of aged wood and leather, remnants of years spent crafting music that reached millions. Yet despite the accolades, an ache settled deep within him. Over the years he had played to thousands, sharing his songs and stories, pouring his heart out under bright lights, and yet a gnawing sense of disconnect lingered. Fame had its price, and George was learning that it sometimes cost him the very connections he craved the most. As the evening settled in, soft shadows danced against the walls. George's eyes drifted out the window to the world beyond. The setting sun cast a golden hue across the sprawling Texas landscape, but it all felt paradoxically distant. He felt trapped within those walls, as if he existed in a bubble, while life outside thrived without him. How many times had he chosen the stage over meaningful moments? The irony was bittersweet. His heart ached for human connection, yet he had so often left that desire unfulfilled, chasing dreams like a ghost unsure of its own form. A flutter caught his eye, pulling him back from his thoughts. There, on the edge of his cluttered desk, something stood out. A letter, folded neatly and untouched. It appeared ordinary at first glance, plain white paper addressed simply to him. George's brow furrowed in curiosity. Who could possibly be writing to him? Slowly he reached for the envelope, the paper cool against his fingers, hesitant to disturb the seal. After a moment of contemplation, he broke the seal and unfolded the letter, a wave of anticipation washing over him. Inside, the paper was scrawled with a careful yet shaky hand. As he began to read, his pulse quickened, and the room seemed to fade around him. "Dear Mr. Strait," it began. "I know you don't know me, but I wanted to tell you how lonely I feel sometimes. My family is loud and busy, and it's like I'm invisible. I watch the way you smile on stage, and I wish I could feel that way too." With each line etched on the page, tears pooled in George's eyes, blurring the words on the paper. It was as if this little girl had reached through the void, striking a chord that resonated with the very heart of his own forgotten longing. He had spent decades spinning tales of love, loss, and heartache through his music, yet here was a child expressing a longing that echoed his own, a yearning for connection amid chaos. A heavy silence settled back into the room as George looked out toward the growing shadows in the twilight sky. He felt an ache for the innocence of a child who sought comfort in a man she had only known through song. The world beyond that window continued spinning, its vibrancy contrasting painfully with the emptiness inside him. And for the first time in years, the layers of isolation peeled back just a little, letting curiosity creep in. A whisper of hope ignited within. Perhaps this letter was a calling, a chance to rediscover the connections he had sorely neglected. In that vulnerable moment, George felt something shift inside him, a flicker of purpose ablaze amidst the specter of his past. It was time to reach out, to connect. Time to leave that gilded cage and step back into the vibrant tapestry of life. Now we can move on to Block 2, the past and the roots. The morning light streamed into George's study, illuminating the dust motes that danced in the air. Despite the bright day outside, George felt a heaviness that lingered, woven tightly into the fabric of his thoughts. The letter from the little girl tucked away in his breast pocket felt like a precious stone, too delicate to let go, yet too powerful to ignore. He turned back to the window, his gaze unfocused as he envisioned a different time, a simpler life filled with laughter and music. Flashes of childhood memories flooded his mind, each like a note harmonizing in a long-forgotten melody. He pictured the warmth of home, the crackling fire in the hearth during cold Texas winters, the sweet scent of his mother's cooking mixing with the earthy aroma of the fields outside. The echoes of family gatherings filled with music lingered in his ears. His father on the guitar, his mother smiling, urging him to join in. They nurtured his dreams before the world of stardom took him miles away. George recalled the moment he wrote his first song. He was just a boy perched on the edge of his bed, under the glow of a desk lamp. He strummed an old guitar, the wood worn and warm beneath his fingers. The song flowed from his heart, capturing the joy of youth, the longing for connection, elements that defined him then but had slipped away with fame. The thrill of sharing that song with his family, witnessing the way it brought them together, was still etched in his mind. Years rolled on, and gradually those cherished evenings morphed into flashes of bright lights and roaring crowds. Music tours turned into an endless cycle of performances, accolades, and the fleeting euphoria that fame provided. He had been swept away, an ascending star in a world of flashing bulbs, yet he often found himself standing alone, yearning for the genuine connections of home. With every award, every success, he felt he teetered further away from the warmth of the relationships that mattered most. As George contemplated, memories of friends and moments from his past stirred bittersweet echoes within him. The camaraderie with fellow musicians, the profound discussions in smoky bars, and the genuine laughter at little victories all started to fade like old photographs left in the sun. Stages offered applause, but rarely fostered the depth of human interaction he had craved. Then came the vivid reality of Emily's letter. She had expressed a sense of invisibility, shades of his own childhood struggles reflected in her words. The helplessness felt by two people living parallel lives, he surrounded by adoring fans yet feeling profoundly alone, she lost amidst the noise of her chaotic family. It resonated more than he anticipated, awakening a compassion buried beneath layers of regret. Feeling restless, George rose from his chair and walked slowly to the guitar that rested against the wall, an old friend left untouched for too long. He lifted it, feeling its familiar weight, and sat on the porch, bathed in the golden glow of the Texas sun. He began to strum, the chords spilling out from his fingers like whispers of past dreams. Each note hummed with an emotion he tried to suppress, longing, nostalgia, and the faint pulse of hope. As he played, the memories morphed into melodies that danced in the soft afternoon breeze. He thought about reaching out, not only to Emily, but through her perhaps to connect with a larger canvas of young hearts, yearning for validation and understanding. Could he be the bridge that linked their lives to a bigger world? His reflections were interrupted when the sound of laughter cut through the air. George turned his head to see children playing in a nearby yard, their giggles flowing like a sweet refrain. He watched them chase each other, radiant smiles illuminating their faces. The vibrant energy buzzed in the air, a stark contrast to the solitude that had settled inside him. A fleeting thought struck him. Where was the innocent joy he once knew? The young girl had opened a door, and it was time to step through it. Inspired unexpectedly, he recalled his friend Tommy, a fellow musician now running a community center that fostered creativity for local children. Tommy always had a knack for nurturing talent and giving children a safe space to express themselves through music. George felt a spark of purpose. With a newfound determination, he knew he had to reach out to Tommy, to not only revive his own ties to community, but also to connect with Emily and others like her. This was his chance to blend his two worlds, to bring light back into his life through the sharing of music, laughter, and compassion. With resolve, he set the guitar aside and made his way to the door. The sunlight kissed his skin as he stepped outside, illuminating a path toward the community center he had once frequented. A breeze rustled the leaves above. It felt as if the universe was urging him forward, beckoning him to the very connections he had overlooked for so long. As he walked, George felt a sense of renewal wash over him. He was no longer just looking back at what he had lost. He was stepping toward the possibility of creating the future he had long yearned for, a future rich with human connection and rediscovered purpose. The journey would not be easy, but he was ready to embrace it. With each step, the promise of connection drew closer, and he vowed not to squander another opportunity to reach out, to share his heart, and to learn from those who needed him just as much as he needed them. The sun that had once warmed George's spirit now felt like a spotlight, amplifying his doubts as he walked toward the community center. Memories of past laughter hung in the air, and as he approached the modest building, its faded blue paint reminded him of a life filled with connection. Inside, he was greeted by a chaotic symphony of youthful energy, guitars and conversations radiating from the children filling the room. "Hey, George," Tommy called out, his voice a familiar anchor in the bustling atmosphere. Always the enthusiastic host, Tommy wore his worn flannel like a badge of honor, effortlessly radiating warmth. "Come join us." George felt an involuntary hesitation creep in, a fear of being an outsider, a relic from a past fame that felt foreign in the vibrant life of the community center. Families gathered around, each face reflecting hope and longing, reminding him of the connections he had let slip through his fingers as he channeled his energy into an increasingly solitary career. As George moved closer to Tommy, he noticed a group of teenagers struggling with a fast-paced song. Their nervous glances and hurried strumming mirrored his own insecurities. "What's the song?" he asked, a smile plastered on his face despite the apprehensions swirling within. They shared the title, their faces lighting up with a mix of excitement and expectation. George couldn't help but feel a surge of nostalgia. He remembered the initial thrill of sharing music with others, the laughter that followed every mistake, and the camaraderie that amplified the joy. It sparked something deep inside him, pushing away the part of him that felt too disconnected to truly belong. "All right, let's tackle this together," he encouraged, his voice more resolute than he felt. As they practiced, he noticed how the children began to shed their self-doubt. For every laugh and shared mistake, bonds were forged. Yet, as the minutes passed, George's heart remained heavy, a sense of loneliness clouding the lightness he observed in the others. During a break, a girl with bright eyes asked, "Mr. Strait, do you ever feel like you don't belong?" The question sliced through him. "Sometimes," he admitted, struggling to articulate the void that haunted him, even amid the applause and acclaim. "Fame can be lonely, but these moments, surrounded by all of you, remind me we're not alone." She nodded, her expression sincere. "I thought being famous meant you'd never feel that way." In that small exchange, George recognized the remarkable power of connection. Here, wrapped in the innocence of youth and shared aspirations, he felt a way forward. The atmosphere shifted. Laughter layered itself over the music, creating a tapestry of hope that began to envelop him. Yet as evening approached and the children dispersed one by one, shadows of solitude closed in anew. George found himself standing in the quiet of his study later that night, struggling to translate the day's warmth into something tangible. The sound of crickets outside reminded him of the children's laughter, a once familiar sound that now felt achingly distant. Sitting with his guitar, he strummed absent-mindedly, feeling the pressure of unexpressed gratitude and longing bubbling through him. He remembered Emily's letter, and how her words had stirred a desire for authenticity and connection he had long buried, suddenly realizing it wasn't only about his past, it was about the steps he needed to take to mend the loneliness and isolation binding him. Resolved to overcome his fears, George took the leap forward, not only to reconnect with others, but also to embrace the vulnerability within himself. If he wanted to be the person those children looked up to, he must open his heart and find joy once again in the music, laughter, and interactions he had so deeply missed. Inspired by this volition for change, he decided to reach out, step out of the shadows, and develop a new understanding of both himself and the life he wished to foster. There was power in connection, and he was ready to reclaim it. Next, we can develop Block 4, the rebirth. The morning sun peeked through the curtains, bathing George's room in a soft golden light. This warm glow felt different, almost like a gentle invitation to a new beginning. He sat up, the remnants of yesterday's emotional journey still weaving through his mind, but today felt brighter, lighter. Today was the day he would act on the small seeds of hope that had begun to take root within him. After a quick breakfast, George grabbed his guitar, feeling its familiar weight settle against him as he walked to the porch. The world outside was alive, birds were chirping, and the distant hum of the morning traffic reminded him that life continued, vibrant and busy. New possibilities were waiting just beyond the horizon, and he felt ready to embrace them. Deciding to visit the community center again, George washed the lingering shadows of doubt from his heart. He envisioned the faces of the children he had met, of Emily, whose letter had sparked everything, each face a reminder of joy, authenticity, and the promise of connection. With every step toward the center, he felt lighter, each footfall echoing with newfound purpose. Arriving, George heard chatter pouring from an open window. He stepped inside, welcomed by the warmth of laughter and the unmistakable sound of music. The children were gathered around Tommy, who was leading an improvised jam session, with instruments strewn across the floor like colorful puzzle pieces. "George?" Tommy greeted, hands raised, a wide grin splitting his face. "We were just talking about you. The kids want to connect with their idol." A wave of humility washed over George as the excited eyes of the children turned toward him. "I'm no idol," he chuckled, a hint of nervousness tightening his throat. "But I'd love to join in. What are we playing today?" The kids animatedly chirped their suggestions, and soon George took his place in the circle. The music began to flow, and with it, a sense of belonging washed over him. He watched as the children lost themselves in the rhythm, expressing themselves freely. For the first time in a long while, George felt the walls around his heart begin to crumble, allowing for laughter and genuine connection. As the session progressed, George discerned individual stories unfolding between the notes. The shy girl gaining confidence with every strum, a boy who poured his heart into lyrics about his struggles, and another who shared anecdotes of his family with infectious zeal. Each story drew George in deeper, anchoring him in the present moment. Eventually, the music faded into a softer hum, and Tommy gathered the children around. "Let's hear from George," he announced, gesturing for him to speak. The room grew quiet, all eyes on George. He took a deep breath, uncertainty wobbling within him. "You know," he began, looking around at those hopeful faces, "I've spent a long time feeling lost. I thought being famous meant I would never be lonely again. But it turns out, what really fills that void is real connection with people who understand." He paused, letting his words hang in the air. "You all have inspired me to step back into this world of music, and for that I am incredibly grateful." Uneasy murmurs of encouragement fluttered through the group. The girl who had asked him about feeling lonely raised her hand. "Mr. Strait, you said you were lost. How do you find your way back?" George smiled gently, seeing her genuine curiosity. "Sometimes it takes reaching out, allowing yourself to be vulnerable. I'm learning that it's okay to let people in, and today I'm ready to share my music with all of you." The children nodded, their trust easily woven into the air like music notes. The comfort level rose, and gradually, a few older kids began to share sketches of ideas for songs they'd been writing, their voices timid but clear, hopeful notes in a symphony of possibilities. George listened intently, offering advice and encouragement, planted with compassion in his heart. Afterward, the atmosphere transformed into one of creativity. Together they wrote new lyrics, blending their voices to fill the space with laughter and joy. They bounced ideas off one another, inspiring and uplifting, like a vortex of positive energy swirling into the air. Each child found their spot, each uniquely contributing their essence, and George felt his own creativity reawakening, intertwining freely with theirs. As the afternoon sun began to set, casting a beautiful orange glow inside the center, an idea sparked within George. What if they held a showcase for the community, an event where the children could share their songs, their stories, and the connections they had forged through music? His heart raced at the thought, the idea electrifying the air around him. "How about we put on a community showcase?" he proposed, excitement spilling into his voice. "A night where you can perform what you've created, where we can draw in everyone around us, share our stories, and show them what connection truly looks like." The room erupted with applause and cheers, the children's enthusiasm blending into a joyous noise. They quickly began brainstorming ideas, titles for the event, and things they would like to include. Suddenly, George felt propelled back in time, to days filled with dreams woven between laughter and shared melodies. As the day faded into night, the sense of accomplishment and camaraderie filled the community center, a powerful reminder that belonging comes from shared experiences and vulnerability. In these moments, George felt himself reborn, no longer just an artist cloistered in the isolation of fame, but a part of a thriving community, a mosaic of shared lives. Driving home that evening, George reflected on the rebirth he'd undergone. With every child he connected with, every laugh shared, he felt layers of sorrow lifted, slowly healed by the music growing between them. In that vibrant atmosphere of creativity, he recognized his own humanity reflected in the children's hopes, dreams, and fears, and he embraced it all with gratitude. It was clear to him now, in the harmonies of notes, the friendships formed, and the willingness to open their hearts to one another, they had rekindled the essence of music. And in that essence lay an opportunity to mend the world, one note at a time. His heart swelled with hope. He was ready to share this journey with those who needed it most, beginning with the invitation extended to Emily to inspire her the way she had unknowingly inspired him. As the evening sky deepened above, George found clarity, purpose, and the soft glow of connection that would guide him forward. Next, we can develop Block 5, the crisis. The days leading to the community showcase felt like a whirlwind of excitement. Children flooded the community center, pouring energy into transforming ideas into reality. The walls adorned with colorful posters declaring Community Showcase, a night of music and togetherness, pulsated with a life of their own. Laughter and chatter filled the air, and for George, the spirit of creativity washed over him like a bright summer breeze. Yet beneath the joyful surface, a heavy unease clawed at George's heart. As the day of the event drew nearer, uncertainty spiraled inside him. Was he truly prepared to step back onto the stage? The warmth of the children's enthusiasm reminded him of a time when he thrived in connection, and yet the specter of past failures lurked in the recesses of his mind. Sitting on his porch one evening, preparing for what lay ahead, anxiety surged. As he strummed his guitar, he felt a creeping realization. The pressure to perform wasn't just about the event. It echoed the vulnerabilities he had buried for so long. Every wrong note felt magnified, the weight of expectations imprisoning him. Would the children look up to him or see only someone lost? The night before the showcase, sleep evaded him. Memories of empty applause and criticism loomed large, chipping away at his confidence. What if he disappointed the children who had put their faith in him? Uncertainty clouded his thoughts. His heart ached beneath the burden of expectation. Despite his fears, George pushed himself to the center the next morning, shaking off lingering doubts. As he entered, a rush of joy washed over him. The children were busy rehearsing their performances, and their animated energy filled him with a sense of purpose. But as George interacted with them, he couldn't shake the feeling of disconnection brewing beneath the enthusiasm. Tommy approached, concern written across his face. "You all right, George? You seem a bit off." "I'm just nervous. I want to be there for the kids, but I feel like I'm letting them down," George confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Listen, they see you as more than just a performer. They see someone who cares. Remember, you're part of their journey too," Tommy reassured him. Taking a deep breath, George nodded and tried to focus on the music around him. But even as he watched, doubt crept back in, twisting his heart. As the children shared their creations with genuine excitement, the fear of failing them grew heavier. The day of the showcase arrived, fluttering with anticipation. Parents filed into the community center, their smiles a mix of pride and expectation. The stage was set, and George could feel his heart pounding as he prepared for his turn. The vibrant noise of the children's laughter faded into a distant hum, and he was engulfed in a storm of anxiety. When it was time for him to step forward, George hesitated. The crowd's applause, an echo of what he had once cherished, now felt overwhelming. Anxiety clutched at his chest, stifling his breath. As he stood there, silence enveloped him, pressing down like an anchor. Self-doubt whispered fiercely, what if he lost them all again? Stumbling over his own insecurities, George forced a smile, but the confidence that previously radiated had begun to flicker. He grasped the microphone, ready to share. But in that instant, the first trickle of doubt surged to the surface. In the midst of strumming, a wrong chord slipped through his fingers. The dissonance hung in the air, and a collective gasp reverberated through the crowd. Panic gripped George as he faltered. The laughter that had surrounded them shifted, as he sensed the room tense with uncertainty. Had he failed them already? His heartbeat thundered loudly in his ears, and self-doubt spiraled out of control. Memories of judgment spun in his mind, overpowering the joy he had felt only moments ago. He felt exposed, a wave of shame crashing over him as every eye scrutinized his transition from gleam to disarray. Yet, in the depths of that chaos, something shifted within George. He realized the showcase wasn't merely about him. It was about the bonds formed through music, the collective strength in vulnerability. The children had poured their hearts into each note, each song, a reminder that everyone understood the beauty of imperfection. Drawing strength from the children's resilience, George took a deep breath. "Let's do this together," he called out, his voice trembling, yet infused with newfound determination. As the kids rallied around him, instinctively joining in on the rhythm, resonance filled the space. Their voices intertwined, laughter merging with the music, creating a collective heartbeat that pulsed with life. George smiled, recognizing that the essence of performance lay in unity, and shared experience rather than flawless execution. In the moments that followed, the showcase transformed into a mesmerizing display of connection and vulnerability, each song interwoven with stories of triumph and struggle. What began as a crisis evolved into a celebration, reaffirming the purpose they all sought. As he played alongside them, laughter drowned out his fears. The audience responded, clapping and cheering for every note shared. George stood among the children, imperfect but alive in every sense. In that whirlwind of sound and connection, he remembered why he had chosen to be there in the first place, to share joy, to grow, and to reconnect with both himself and others. In the final notes of the last song, George found strength blooming deep within him. The fear had transformed, reshaped into something beautiful. As the applause washed over them, George realized that he was no longer alone. The crisis had unveiled a truth he desperately needed, to find strength in vulnerability and redemption in shared music. As the laughter cascaded through the center, George stood together with the children, enveloped in a tapestry of resilience that echoed through every lingering note. He was reborn, ready to embrace the journey ahead, a journey defined by connection, acceptance, and the raw beauty of humanity. Next, we can develop. Block 6, the resolution. The applause echoed long after the final notes faded, wrapping the community center in warmth and celebration. George stood at the center of it all, surrounded by the children who had become his solace and strength. Their smiles radiated joy, their energy palpable. In that moment, he felt a heartwarming surge, a powerful reminder of how far they had all come together. As the crowd began to disperse, the children lingered close, their excitement still buzzing in the air. Tommy clapped George on the back, grinning ear to ear. "You did it, man. You brought the house down." George chuckled, shaking his head in disbelief. "No, we did it together." One by one, the children approached George, seeking his approval, their eyes sparkling with hope and joy. Leo, the young boy from before, stepped forward. "Mr. Strait, you were amazing. I couldn't believe how everyone loved our songs." "Thanks, Leo. But you all were the ones who shone out there. Your voices made the night special," George replied, bending down to meet the boy's eyes, feeling the pride swell within him. Emily was next, her smile wide as she held a flyer. "Look, I saved one of our posters. I want you to sign it, just like you're my superstar." She thrust the crumpled flyer into his hands. George's heart melted at her genuine admiration. Her innocent belief in him felt like a balm to his spirit. "Of course, Emily. I'd be honored," he said, taking the flyer and writing his name carefully. "You know what? You're my superstar too, kid." As the sun dipped lower, coloring the sky in hues of purple and gold, George took a moment to reflect. The showcase had revealed not just his vulnerabilities, but the beauty of connection born from shared experiences. Each child had birthed their own story through music, discovering courage and joy in unexpected ways. Richard, the young rapper, who had once hesitated to share his lyrics, now stood confidently in front of the crowd. His shaky hands had transformed into a steady beat, each line resonating with authenticity and spirit. But amidst this happiness, the initial unease about his own path still lingered. George lingered near the exit, watching parents gather their children. There was something warm about the interactions. Laughter, hugs, and words of encouragement filled the air. Yet in the back of his mind, the question remained, what next? Tommy popped up beside him, sensing the weight in George's silence. "You okay, buddy? You seem lost in thought." "I guess I'm just trying to figure out what all this means for me," George confessed, the uncertainty weighty in his voice. "I was caught up in the spotlight for so long, but now it feels different. This is real, Tommy. It's about real connections." Tommy nodded, understanding illuminated in his eyes. "This is your chance, George, to bring together all those feelings you've bottled up. The connections you've made here, they could inspire a whole new chapter in your music." George considered this, his heart hope-filled. "You're right," he replied slowly. "This isn't just about performing anymore. It's about diving into the stories and the laughter that brought us together." As they stepped outside, the evening air was crisp, filled with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh-cut grass. George felt a renewed sense of purpose when he spotted Emily a few feet away, sharing her own performance memories with her friend. She was alive with hope and dreams, the essence of youth pulsing vibrantly. "Hey, Emily!" George called out, drawing her attention. She turned, eyes shining like stars, and rushed over. "I want to do something special, and I need your help." Her anticipation radiated from her smile. "Really? What is it?" she squealed, her excitement palpable. "I'd like to start a music program here, a way for kids like you to explore their creativity, share their stories, and connect with music. You can help me lead it. What do you think?" "Yes, I'd love that." Her joy felt contagious. The thought of a music program, a hub of stories, laughter, and collaboration, anchored itself within George's heart. This was his chance to impact the future generation, to foster community through creativity. As plans began to take shape in George's mind, he felt the release of burdens long carried. The journey he embarked upon wouldn't end with this showcase. Instead, it would evolve into something greater. With each child he worked with, he would rediscover the magic of music through their perspective, shaping a new legacy intertwined with authenticity and courage. In return, their enthusiasm would breathe life back into his own creative spirit. Weeks passed, and the music program took off, filling the community center with the vibrant sounds of voices raised in harmony. George watched the children grow. Their lyrics carried the weight of their stories, their melodies filled with dreams yet to unfold. One evening, as George prepared for another jam session, he glanced around, basking in the laughter and joy that surrounded him. No longer the lonely artist searching for affirmation, he felt fully immersed in a web of connection that spanned generations. Emily approached, guitar in hand, her face glowing with excitement. "Mr. Strait, I wrote a new song. Can we share it together?" Her trust in him, the excitement spilling from her words, resonated deep within his heart. "Of course, let's share it," he replied, feeling the familiar energy surge as they began to play. In that moment, George understood that music itself held a greater meaning, a bridge connecting people, a vessel for stories waiting to be told. As he strummed alongside Emily, laughter and music intertwined, crafting a symphony of hope, redemption, and growth. George realized he was never truly alone. Through the hearts and voices of these children, an unyielding sense of belonging enveloped him. In this awakening, George found his purpose entrenched in a simple truth. Connection is the melody that plays through life, a rhythm that unites hearts, one note at a time. Next, we can develop Block 7, the legacy. Months flowed by, and the music program blossomed, transforming the community center into a vibrant hub of creativity. Laughter echoed within its walls as children harnessed their stories through song. George watched them flourish, each performance revealing a raw talent intertwined with their unique experiences. On a particularly bright day, anticipation buzzed in the air as they prepared for a special showcase. George glanced at the colorful flyers lining the walls, collaboratively designed by the kids, bursting with their excitement. Each flyer was a small piece of their collective voice, a testament to the creativity they had nurtured together. "Mr. Strait, tonight's going to be amazing," Emily exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with uncontained enthusiasm. George felt that familiar warmth spread through him. He, too, was eager for everyone to witness the talents that had evolved under their shared dedication. As the performances began, George stepped back to take in the scene. Each child presented their piece, their nervousness melting away with every note sung. Leo's heartfelt ballad left the audience spellbound, while Richard's rhythmic verses painted a vivid picture of his life experiences. When it was Emily's turn, George could feel the excitement radiating from her. "Just remember, we're all here with you," he murmured as she took her place on stage. Emily's voice soared as she shared their song, full of emotion and hope. George beamed with pride, not just for her, but for all the young performers who had come so far. The audience erupted into applause, the sound washing over George like a wave, affirming the power of connection they had all created. Gathering the children after the last performance, George felt the significance of the moment settle in. Tonight was extraordinary. You all shared not just your talents, but the essence of who you are. We've built something real, a community united through music. Cheers erupted from the children, their joy infectious. George realized in that moment that while he had guided them, they had equally gifted him the profound understanding of legacy. Each song became a seed planted in the hearts of everyone present, inspiring future generations to embrace their voices. As he stood on the stage, listening to the laughter and celebration around him, George recognized that he was no longer just the artist seeking validation. He was a nurturer of dreams, helping mold the future through shared stories and melodies. The stage transformed from a place of solitude to one brimming with connection, creativity, and affection. Later that evening, as the celebratory atmosphere began to calm, George reflected on what this journey had revealed. The music program wasn't simply about imparting knowledge. It was about the relationships formed through creativity, the bonds that strengthened their community. What had started as a personal struggle became a rich legacy of love and resilience. As the night wound down, the shining faces of the children marked the beginning of something profound. George realized that through music, they had all cultivated a profound understanding of life's beauty. "Let's keep this energy alive," he said, thumping Emily lightly on the shoulder. "We'll continue to write, perform, and share. This is just the beginning." The promise of future adventures glimmered in their eyes, and George understood. Their legacy would echo through time, a melody woven from joy, hope, and the inescapable ties of community. As he watched the children share plans for new songs and performances, George felt a deep contentment settle in his heart. They had created an unbreakable tapestry of connection, a legacy that transcended individual dreams and anchored them all in a collective sense of purpose. No longer alone in his journey, George Strait felt invigorated, eager to nurture both his own artistry and the bright futures ahead of those he had come to love. Together, they would carry this melody forward, proving that when hearts unite through music, the echoes of their joy can resonate for generations to come. This concludes the narrative journey of George Strait, highlighting his transformation and the legacy he established through his community music program.